It's crazy that you can feel like you're doing all the right things and you just never have any guarantees in what life is going to hand you. And you just can control how you react when it comes and how you can prepare before whatever happens.
I was finding my pot and my soil and I was cultivating myself. Whereas up to that point, I had just been part of somebody else's cultivation of me and helping me grow into the person that I am.
Things come into your life, things leave your life, situations happen in reasons that you can't understand in the moment, but like it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. We'll start the show in just a minute, but first, a word from our premier brand sponsor.
I'm Mercedes, founder of MBX Homes, and we are a co-hosting company based in Southern California. We manage over 100 properties to date, and Lodgify has become the core of our business. Without it, I don't even think our business could run. It truly has become the heart. We're able to see all of the reservations. Our cleaners go into their portal and they make sure all the cleans are done for the day. And of course, our owners know exactly what's happening in their property. And I think that's amazing to have full transparency in your business on both the operational side and your client side. At MBX Homes, we pride ourselves in brand recognition, and Lodgify has truly helped with that. Since we have so many repeat clients, we're easily able to welcome our guests back by sending the direct booking link, and I think that is the feature that has really helped our business grow. By having a direct booking website, not only are we really promoting our own brand and our own properties, we are able to fully control that reservation and make the most profit for both ourselves and, of course, our clients, aka our co-hosting owners. The Lodgify team has been wonderful. They truly have supported so many hosts, including myself. During our onboarding for Lodgify, we had a dedicated person who was with us every step of the way when it came to onboarding. And ever since then, when we have new questions or we're onboarding new properties, we're able to reach out to Lodgify and they are able to help us integrate seamlessly. They're so easy to get a hold of, where if you're getting a hold of them via Lodgify themselves, you're emailing them, or you're calling the support number, somebody is always there to take care of you and to make sure that the problem is resolved in real time. If you're a co-host managing multiple properties, I truly do recommend Lodgify. It's a real tool that we use every single day, and it has only helped grow our business.
Looking to streamline how you manage your short-term rentals? Get started with Lodgify today and get 20% off yearly and bi-yearly plans. Plus, free personalized onboarding worth over $3,000 when you use the code AAA20 at checkout. This offer is valid until December 31st, 2025. Click the link in the description to get started today.
Welcome to Alex and Annie, the Real Women of Vacation Rentals. I'm Alex.
And I'm Annie.
And we have Angie Leone, who is the owner of Coconut Condos, on the show tonight. And I say tonight because Angie is all the way in Hawaii. So good to see you, Angie.
You guys too. Aloha. Thanks
Aloha.
for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We were talking off camera. We got a chance to see you at the Women's Summit this summer, and your speech was moving, and just I think everybody walked away from that just with a whole new perspective on life. And I know personally, I walked away with it about being kind of replanting yourself and how important that is, and finding your footing. And I don't want to belabor the point, but so a lot of the women in the industry have gotten to know you through that. But why don't you introduce yourself to our listeners? We do have a lot of male listeners and people from Europe. Introduce yourself, and then we can kind of get into the meat of the conversation.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you guys again for having me. Yeah, I'm Angie and I live in Lahaina. I'm married and have 2 boys. My first career I was a bilingual speech therapist. So I have my master's in that and did that for 10 years. Like so many of us, this wasn't our first career. And then I started Coconut Condos with the condo that my husband and I owned. And it just kind of grew organically as a side hustle. We grew it to 60 plus. And then after COVID, it went down to 50. And now we just manage our own properties.
Oh, that's great. And I feel like before the women's conference, I know I had seen you at conferences. I had never spoken to you, I don't think, but I'd always heard your name, and probably because it was Coconut Condos, because that's kind of my background is in the condo scene. Like there's always something interesting just about you. But you had a really incredible and probably one of the most moving just sessions that I had seen on stage at a conference, and talking about something really unbelievable, out of the blue, terrible, life shifting that happened to you and the company because of a weather event in Hawaii. But what we found in that entire conference was that a lot of what was talked about is, the resilience that you have to find within yourself when something like that happens. And we wanted to have you on the show because obviously there's not everybody that was in attendance at that conference that could hear your message, and maybe this resonates with them. Not that they're going through the same situation, but maybe something similar. So if you could kind of just take us through what you talked about at the conference, and we'll ask questions along the way, but however you feel comfortable sharing it, we would love to hear more about it.
To start the story, I think it's helpful to know that, we had the business for 12 years, opened it in 2011, and had grown it to, we were managing about 50 properties at the time, had 13 employees, had an office and warehouse in Lahaina that we operated out of, and we managed the front desk of property in Lahaina town in the parking lot. And during COVID, we were shut down for 13 months. It was a really difficult time as a woman and business owner, just to know how to navigate that. And we all went through that, right? That challenge of getting through it. And when I came out of the other side of that, I was really tired. And even in the middle of it, I was thinking I think it's time to sell. And my board of directors, which is one of the things I talked about in Charleston, they encouraged me no, don't do it now. You've got to get through this. You can get through this. And so I was like, okay, I can get through this. We got through it. And then I still was feeling like that was where I was headed, was to sell the business. And so we brought back all our staff. People came back to Hawaii. We had our best year ever. And then I was ready to list the company for sale. And May 1st, we listed it for sale. June 1st, we had a buyer. We were under a letter of intent. And so then we were traveling for the summer, came back, and August 6th, the buyer flew over from California, and we toured the properties, had lunch in Lahaina, went to our office, and that was the last time I ever was in my office. And then 2 days later, the fire happened, and the office was gone. 45 of the 50 condos that we managed were gone. And that front desk, the van, our company van, in an instant, it was just gone. And I knew when in Charleston, I had pictures, and I showed a picture of the moment when our friend was walking towards us. We were staying at a condo that we managed at the time. We weren't in this house because we're getting a new roof, and we could see the fire. My son saw the fire outside of his window, and he said, "I can see it." And so we went outside, and our friend was walking towards us, and he had just walked from Lahaina and said, "It's all gone, Angie. It's all gone." And he's like, "Ainanalu is gone." And when he said that, in the pit of my stomach, I knew what it meant for me, that selling the business, that dream just was gone.
It was gone. Yeah.
And I didn't want to believe that it was true. I was like, oh, maybe he just has bad information or exaggerating, but I just couldn't deal with it at the time. So we evacuated, and we were stuck on the other side for 2 weeks, and then came back. And thankfully, we had a lot of remote workers. So there was no power, no internet, anything for a while. And so we had to make sure that all of our guests were safe and let our owners know what was happening. And so I feel like one of the ways we were well prepared for this disaster was that we did have some remote workers that were not on island. And so thankfully that staff was able to communicate with all of our guests, make sure everyone was, had either left island or evacuated to safety, and that our owners were aware of as much as we knew what was happening. It's crazy that you can feel like you're doing all the right things, and you just never have any guarantees in what life is going to hand you. And you just can control how you react when it comes, and how you can prepare before whatever happens, right?
Yeah. So you were able to get to safety? I guess the question, I went through something similar, not even remotely as bad, but mine was pre-COVID. So it was like, went from devastation to COVID. So it was like years of just kind of like not knowing what is going on in your world. And I remember those moments of just like, is it going to get any better? Is it going to get any worse? But I was, yesterday, they were talking about the hurricane that went through Jamaica, and I have friends who have family there, and I was texting with her. And I just remember that like first couple of weeks, just trying to find normalcy in something that wasn't completely normal. And I can't imagine your situation because, hurricanes are different. Fires are they're wholly different disasters. Not that they're one's worse than the other, but they're different. And everything was gone. So like your reference point of like where things were, how did you find any sense of normalcy for those few, probably months for you and your boys? I mean, that had to have been very challenging.
Yes. It has been very challenging. It was very challenging. We are a very close family, and I think we're closer now for it. My boys, they were in 8th grade in their sophomore year, and now they're 15 and 18, and we are definitely a stronger family for walking through this together. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I can say that we are closer and tighter, and I know my boys are well equipped to navigate difficulty in their lives because of this. So that's maybe the silver lining, is that we were able to, Mike and I were not equipped to handle a disaster, and we each handled it in our own way, and we just did the best that we could with the resources that we had around us. And faith is a huge part of our family and our community, and so we relied on our faith a lot, and we still continue to do that. When I was preparing for the talk in Charleston, I think when you do something like that, it sort of forces you to reflect back and make some sense of what happened and gather your thoughts about what has helped me. What could I say to encourage somebody else? And nobody, well, actually one of my friends had been through this before. Her house burned down in 2018, and she rebuilt it, and it burned down again.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
We had been through it, and she was able to offer the rest of us a lot of encouragement, even though she was going through it herself, about how to navigate insurance and your mortgage and deferrals and all of that. So, but none of us had walked through it. So yeah, I think I had mentioned I've been writing. That was a dream of mine when I was selling the business. I wanted to write a book, and I didn't know this was the book I was going to write.
I don't know what chapter you were about to write it on.
Yeah, really.
I have a totally different story now. But I will say this is just like an example of my boys, how they helped me through it. Is we were sitting out here on my swing one morning, and my oldest son, they didn't know I was selling the business. And so we had to tell them why mom was extra sad. It's all sad. But then when you are like, I was so close to my dream coming true, and it just is gone. And so we had to then explain like why. And a few weeks later, we were back here in this house. We were able to come back. The power went on, and I moved back here for a while. And Jack was out on the swing with me, and he was like, well, what's your book about now, Mom? And I told him, I'm going to write to encourage people like how to navigate difficult things. And he said, well, you know what? I think that's a way better book that people are going to relate to a lot better than if you had been able to sell your business.
1,000%.
Yeah. So yeah, finding the things that ground you, if that's faith, if that's, I talked about the 5 F's and like faith, family, fitness, freeze, and focus. Those routines that you can put in place before that hard thing happens, because resilience isn't built in the middle of the storm. It's built in the things that you do beforehand, the people that you have in place to surround you with that will help you walk through it.
Yeah, I remember I actually wrote down the 5 F's during your presentation, now that you said that. And you talked about how you do a lot with like the freeze baths, right? Like the cold baths, but also meditation. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, like how you got into that. Obviously you did it before this happened, but like how did you get into that journey? How did you keep yourself motivated to do it? I think that's the hard thing most people struggle with is they might want to try something, but they do it a couple times and they can't stick with it. But it helps you in the long run. So like, what did that look like initially getting into those different habits?
Well, the cold plunge was my husband's, that was his birthday present a few years ago. He really wanted to get into cold plunging. So I bought him that for his birthday. So we had started doing that and I didn't really love it. I'm like, why? I don't want to be cold.
Yeah,
like,
why do I want to be forced to be cold? It sounds terrible.
We grew up in Chicago. We moved away from the cold. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But then he showed me all the studies and I got on board. So we were doing that daily. And then the sauna, I'm not sure if I said this in my talk, but we had the amazing gift in Lahaina of a trauma therapist coming every Thursday from Kihei. And she had written a grant to meet with fire survivors every week for a year for free. And basically like a bunch of my girlfriends filled her schedule on Thursdays. And so we met with her every Thursday. And she was definitely a huge part of helping to move through this difficult season with our kids and how to, work with them and how to not get stuck in grief and loss. And, but one of the things she said one day, I asked her, Sally, like, I find myself driving to school sometimes to pick up my boys, just like screaming, like blasting music and screaming. And I feel like that's okay, but probably not the best way to process my anger and like emotions. What would be better strategies for that? Should I go for a walk or should I like take a nap? And she was like, no, you need to match that with like an activity that's that intense, like go for a hard run or do a hard spin class or sit in a hot sauna and sweat it out. And I came home and told my husband what she had said. And the next week he had bought me a sauna.
Oh.
So that was immediately put into practice. And like, I didn't know I was doing these 5 F's until I had to write a talk about it. And I was like, oh, I am doing these 5 things every morning. And we're 2+ years out from the fire. And I just came home from Nashville and it's often difficult to come back here now because there's still a lot of destruction and loss. And I just said to my girlfriends, those routines and rhythms are still what are keeping me grounded. So the first one, faith, that's something I sit on my swing. I have a spot, whether I'm here, whether I'm in our condo or in Nashville, I have a spot, a chair. Here it's a swing outside. That's where I go every morning, first thing. And I've always been a journaler. So for me, I read the Bible and I journal and I write what I'm grateful for, what I need forgiveness for, my prayers and dreams. And I've done that every day for years and years. And that probably is the most important of the 5. And then family. I used to work out when my boys were home, like in the morning, because I like to do it in the morning. And then I stopped. I was like, no, I'm going to go in the kitchen and just spend that hour with them before they're off to school. And then I'll go work out because they're in high school now and the time is fleeting, right?
Yeah. Time's of the essence.
And then after I do those 4, then I think those are faith, family, fitness. So whatever you like to do for fitness. For me, I have a Peloton and I like to go shelling underwater, like diving for shells. My bracelets.
Oh, wow.
I love it.
Yeah. So whatever that is. And then after that, then you can focus. And for a long time and still it was insurance paperwork. I called it death paperwork. So it was like insurance paperwork, SBA loans, mortgage deferrals, lawsuit paperwork. Yeah. It's not stuff you want to be doing, but you got to get it done.
So you said something there at the conference about you had, and I'm guessing you had this group of women friends prior to this, but that they were your board of directors. And so like everything that you've done, and it's funny because there's a group of us, we have our board of directors now, and one of them calls us her tribal council. But I think it's for the baddies. Yeah, we have baddies. We have the tribal council. But I think it's the women's conference brought it out again. It's like how important it is to have those female friendships. You have your husband, and that's a really important bond, and you have your boys. But it's like having those relationships outside that you can go to and just be and be present with. You really touched on how important it was. And I walked away from that speech really understanding the value of the relationships that I had around me, and maybe hadn't dove into them as deeply as I could, to ensure that we were all there for each other in the good times and the bad. So how, maybe talk about your friendships and what that meant to get through everything.
That's so amazing. I'm glad that was a takeaway, and that's something you guys have really just dove into more. And I'm excited to talk about this because, when some things are lost in your life, it does make space for new things. And I can see that now kind of emerging for me. And one of the things that Sally, my therapist, had said also is that a sign that you're moving through grief and coming out of it is that you can start to cast vision and dream again. And I had started talking about wanting to write and get back into these things that I had been dreaming about. And one of the girlfriends, the one whose house burned down twice, she had asked me if I would mentor her on dreaming, because she felt stuck. And she's a business owner, businesswoman. They own a small business here in Maui, and she's a go-getter. But she, after 2 fires, she was feeling stuck. Yeah, as you can imagine. And so she said, a bunch of us admire that in you. And I was like, okay, wow, yeah, let's do it. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, we'll figure it out. So my writing coach had encouraged me to just do what is working for me with them. So I'm like, okay, we're going to meet monthly. And we called it the Lahaina Dreamers cohort. And we've been meeting monthly since last November. And we sauna, we cold plunge, we journal, we're going through a book together, and we're encouraging each other in our dreams. And that has been one of the things that has really, I think, moved us all forward through this process of rebuilding our lives and our community and our families. And I told them in November that they had to come to 11 out of 12. They had to really commit to the group. But at the end, we were going to culminate with a retreat in Nashville. And we just got back from Nashville. And I am telling you, it was life-changing to be there. 13 women from Lahaina packed up and figured out how to fly 10 hours. That was
what a change of pace compared to what you guys are used to. Totally different.
Yeah, but just, like you said, Annie, like being together, encouraging one another. We had lots of deep moments of like speaking life over one another, but then we had so much fun. It was important to me that these women that are still living in a lot of destruction, and there's not a lot going on here. I love Nashville. We have a vacation rental there that Darby and Angie and Stay Local Nashville manage for us. So I got to use our vacation rental
cool. That's awesome.
Host them for this women's retreat and show them this other town and life that I love, and go dancing and just laugh and hear music and just be filled with life.
Your hair down, literally. Yes, flowers.
Yes, totally. Yeah. So I had coffee with some of them this morning, and some of us, it was harder to come back because you're coming back to some still some stressful things.
Yeah.
But others said, I just came back with such a lightness and encouraged spirit. So yeah, those relationships are immensely important.
We'll be back in just a minute. But first, a word from our premier brand sponsor.
Hi, my name is Julie Bird. I'm the president of Cabo Villas, and we're part of the Nocturne Luxury Villas collection. I've been with Cabo Villas for more than 23 years. When I first learned our company was going to be sold and that Nocturne was coming in, my immediate concern was for my team. Naturally, questions came up. Would they keep their jobs? Would their pay or roles change? Would their benefits be protected? As a leader, ensuring stability and security for my team was my top priority. What quickly reassured me was seeing Nocturne's commitment, not just in retaining our employees, but to actually enhancing their experience. They invested in our people, improving compensation models, strengthening benefits, and creating new opportunities for growth. Nocturne brought resources, expertise, and a culture that aligned with our values, which made me excited about what the future could hold for both our team and our homeowners. We were also concerned about whether our identity as a local expert would be honored and maintained. It quickly became clear that Nocturne respects the local expertise of our teams while providing new ways to make all aspects of our business even stronger. The results have been significant across every area: bookings, visibility, and homeowner engagement. While our digital marketing was already strong, Nocturne has elevated to a entirely new level. We're seeing steady growth in bookings, and just as importantly, we're attracting new homeowners to our portfolio. Even in a down market, we're consistently outperforming our 2024 numbers, a clear sign that the strategies and resources we now have in place are working. I would tell any company leader considering joining us that Nocturne is a partner you can trust to honor your brand while helping you take it further than you could on your own. What truly sets Nocturne apart is both the culture and the leadership. Their approach is people-centric. They genuinely care about you, your team, and the values that make your brand unique. If you want to protect what you've built while joining a team of the industry's best, with the resources and collaboration to unlock new opportunities, Nocturne is the right partner.
If you're considering your next chapter, go to nocturneluxuryvillas.com to see how they can help you protect your legacy while unlocking new opportunities.
Well, I think it's important too to remove yourself and unburden, because when you're in it, I think it's easy to just, you're carrying your burden, you're carrying everybody's burden because you're trying to lighten their burden and you're all carrying it. And it just becomes so much weight that to be able to, I know the first time we left and came back, it was hard to come back, but I came back with a sense of like, okay, now I'm reset and I can repurpose and refocus. And so I think that some people don't take that step. They're afraid to leave and afraid to walk away and afraid how it's going to feel to come back, which is going to be hard. But just being able to unburden your soul and have a few hours and days with people where you can just be and enjoy each other. And I think that's so important. In Nashville, Alex and I love Nashville. So Nashville's great great town to be able to do all of that in. So what did you do in Nashville? Did you guys go line dancing and do all the honky tonks?
Oh my gosh. I feel like we did so much, and yet there's still so much we could do.
Yeah.
We were there mostly Thursday to Monday. Some came and left at different times, but yeah, I took them to the Listening Room Cafe. I wanted to make sure they had lots of different music experiences. So that was the songwriters night experience, hearing the stories of the songs. And then we did like a country western night. And I live my place is in East Nashville, so I wanted them to experience that. We went to see an artist named Ann Wilson at the Pinnacle, which is a new venue downtown. And then we did the Grand Ole Opry on our last night. So they kind of
everything.
You guys had yourself a trip. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. I mean, Annie and I were just returning. We went to Italy with, 3 other girls besides us, or 4 other girls. I mean, it was a good sized group. I haven't traveled with a group of women like that since I was in college and we were going on spring break. And I knew everybody except for Annie's friend Shannon that came with us, who was absolutely amazing. But I think there's so much that I got out of that trip of just like having really, really deep conversations and getting to know each of them on a different level that I had no idea, and like that was an amazing experience for us. And I mean, granted, we haven't all been through something terrible like you guys did, but I think, to Annie's earlier point, and yours too, Angie, it's all about, like having your tribe, because no one knows when something's going to hit. And it's so important to have those people that, they will have your back forever, no matter what, like, because they love you, who you are, who you were, who you are now, all of it. So I think, on one hand, that was a very good thing for you. And also you mentioned the show, you were part of the group that was kind of like the Be Our Nation group, right? Like there was like other people that were from the West Coast kind of that helped out.
The our Live Res Advisory Board group. That was the group that I had mentioned in the conference, and I put the picture up. We started during COVID, and Sharon Keefe was our facilitator. Brian Olson's in the group, and Jim Kitts, and so many awesome people. And we started meeting during COVID, so 2020. So we walked through that together. And we all had different experiences, but we could hop on and we understood like, oh my gosh, how are you dealing with this? What is your county doing, and then continued to meet monthly for years. And then the fire happened and I We had our retreat 6 weeks after the fire. And I was like, I don't know if I can go. I can barely like go outside and face people. I don't even know if I can like go be in a house with people for 3 days. And Sharon just was like, we understand either way, but we are totally here for you. And you can stay an extra day and just have like time to yourself. You have your own space. And I really thought about it. And then I went, and it was amazing. And I was so thankful for those friendships and people that weren't here, because everyone here was going through it. Our whole community was going through it. And so to be able to go somewhere where people understand my business, they understand what it means, they've watched me walk through it, and then to just be there to encourage me. Yeah, I think that trip definitely like helped kind of pull me out a little bit of the darkness. Yeah, and be so appreciative for, I mean, they were part of my board of directors. You know, when you talk about your tribe, I think there's different groups. You have your girls, you have your family, and you have your work and your industry. And I've said this several times that this industry is so amazing. And that example of those friendships that are so deep. And Jennifer Kitts was on that trip with Jim in Portland and Oregon when we went. And then she was at the conference, the women's conference. And she was in there with me, like, she was my pep girl, because I was nervous to share this story for the first time. And so to have that deep friendship with someone in our industry that's walked all the way through all this stuff with you is so just, it's a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I know listening to your talk too, I became way more interested in the cold plunge and the sauna for sure. The sauna is a little bit easier to take, but everybody that I know that has a cold plunge or does cold plunging like on the regular, they all say it's literally been just a complete game changer. And the one person that comes to mind in particular is Brady Stump, that he had lost his leg. And I mean, you don't even recognize it when he's out that anything's wrong with him, but he always says like, doing the cold plunges is what keeps him focused and what got him through a very hard time. And then now, just the daily pressure, how much that helps him just kind of like stabilize, I guess. So my next question would be, I mean, do you still use the cold plunge? And is it one that you have at your house and on that, how does somebody get into it? Because I mean, sometimes I'll just turn the water on cold and I'm like,
yeah. Yeah, that's good too. That's a good place to start. And not everyone has space or, can afford one. So that's good too. Wherever you can start. We have one here, and this is our property that we rent out now. And we're just staying in it for a little while right now. But so we have one here and a sauna. But then we moved out of this house to rent it, and we live in our condo full time. And so when we made that decision, we had a family meeting and we said, listen, boys, the business is gone. It's hard. There's really not a lot of jobs here like for us to get. We can move to Nashville. We have a house there. Or if we're going to afford to stay in Maui, we have to move out of our house to rent it and move into the condo. And so that was our family meeting. And they're like, well, we don't want to move from Maui. They were born and raised here. We don't want to leave the community. So we'll move into the condo. And at the time, the condo didn't have running water or sewer. And I'm like, that means we're going to be like camping in Puamana. And they're like, that's fine. We'll camp in Puamana before we leave. So they had to like carry water and bring it back. And you learn that your kids have some grit and resilience in them when they make those choices, right? So one of the things I said to my husband, though, was, I can do this, but we need to set ourselves up for success. And we know what has been working for us through this. So he went on Facebook Marketplace and bought another sauna and another cold plunge. And we have the same setup there at the condo. It's just like, that's what we need. And we're just going to make it a priority. So I have my spot where I sit and do my journaling, and then sauna and cold plunge. And then when we went to Nashville with the girls, it's very popular on the mainland, and a place had just opened in East Nashville that is like a social sauna cold plunge space. So we went and did it there. there as well. So yeah, for like a lot of the ladies in my Dreamers cohort, none of them had ever done it. Some don't love it. Some really like it. Cold plunge is definitely a harder sell than the sauna. But if you look at, the first time we met, I brought out the data from Stanford Medical Research, and like, these are all the reasons why, because you're like, why do I want to sit in this thing? It's terrible and it's hard. And if you can, I had 2 babies naturally. Like I have learned to use my breath to do really hard things. So if you can just channel your breathing and your breath when you get in, that's the first minute is the hardest. If you can get past the first minute, your body calms down and you can stay in longer. But I just do 3 minutes a day and 30 minutes in the sauna. And some days the sauna feels really hot. So I'll do like 10 and then a quick dip, 10, a quick dip, 10, and then 3 minutes. And my husband does the same thing. We just flip. Like I work out first, he does his sauna cold plunge, and then we switch.
So it's never the same way that like you always do hot sauna before the cold plunge. Like it's always something different, basically.
You always want to end on the cold. Like that's the better, you get the better results if you let your body warm up naturally. So we don't end on the hot, you end on the cold.
So is a cold plunge? It's all ice, right? So do you have an ice machine or like?
There's different ones. We have
okay.
Which is the white. The plunge is you plug it in and there's no ice. It's just temperature, and you can make it go up and down. But some people have the tubs that you fill with ice. I think that's a lot more work.
Yeah, you got a bunch of bags of ice. Yeah,
okay, that's why I was like, "Do you have an ice machine?"
Yeah.
I didn't know that they had them where they could chill them. And okay, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, now it's sensible.
Now it doesn't seem so intrusive in your life.
One of our guests, we have when we're gone in the summer, we like have friends come and stay in our house, and one of our guests was really into cold plunging and sauna, and he left us a gift, those hyper ice legs. I don't know if you've ever seen those.
That's cool.
We added to when the Dreamer girls come over, they're these things you like zip up onto your legs. So if you do like a hard leg day or you run a lot, it's just compression on your legs. So that's another thing.
Okay. I've seen that. I think I've seen them on like sports shows and stuff. They talk about athletes use them. Yeah.
I love them.
Of your friends that you kind of brought into this, like that did or didn't have the experience that you did on the island, have any of them adopted this practice and still do the cold plunge?
A couple of them have. Yes. Yeah. One, my friend Wendy has a cold plunge and sauna. She got them. One of them has the sauna, but not the cold plunge. So some of them are like slowly starting to get their own. But like I said, not everybody has the space or the finances to buy them, and they're hard to get on the island. So I try to make, they come over monthly to use mine, but I try to make it available when possible to them. So
before we started recording, you had said that you felt like when you gave the speech in Charleston that this was what you were meant to do, was just share this. And I kind of wanted to touch on that relative to like moving forward. So you're writing a book, or I don't know if you finished it or you're still working on it. You've given this speech a few times, I know you've been on some other podcasts, and I'm sure they've talked to you about this as well, but what is like next for you with this journey?
That's a good question. I think one thing I've really learned a lot since COVID and the fire is that we can make our plans, but I'm trying to live like this, like my palms open, and just open to keeping my mind open to what God has, because I make plans and then they change and they don't always go the way I think. But yeah, I definitely felt like sharing the message is something I'm supposed to be doing, writing the book. Leading this retreat in Nashville was very life-giving to me and my girlfriends, and several people throughout this year have said, I want to lead a Dreamers cohort. How do I do that? One of my friends has bound all of my curriculum together and said, you need to start doing this and making this a business. So I'm just really open to, I don't know. I'm not sure yet
where it goes. I mean, honestly, I just had conversation with somebody earlier about like, all of us have stories to tell. And I think in our minds, we're like, oh, we're not ready, or like it hasn't hit the peak. Like there's so much more to say. But at the end of the day, it's like how you explain something that happened to you is going to resonate with certain people differently than how Annie could explain what happened to her and in the hurricane, or even somebody else in the exact same storm that you were in Hawaii. The way that somebody describes something is going to connect with somebody different. And, that's why it's like, at the end of the day, everybody, our words of advice are just tell your story and find people that can help you tell that story, because you're going to help somebody else. And like, that's to go through what you went through or anything bad in life. It's like at the end of the day, if you can hope and know that it has help somebody else, like, that really, that hits a chord. And I think what you've done has done that for many people now. And that's why we wanted to continue to share this story, because it's so impactful.
Thank you. Yeah. And after the conference and you guys had reached out about coming on the podcast, and I was listening to some of the ones right after the conference, and Annie, you had mentioned that you were like, in my words, repotting. And so I was excited to ask you about that, like how that process was for you, and that sometimes, life leads you in a different direction.
Yeah. So yeah, I did. And I loved that. I loved that term. And it was so funny because the women's conference was where I officially told, Alex knew, and like my board of directors, they knew. But it was where I was first talking about it. And it had been something that had been in the works for months. But it had been something that had always been sort of like sitting there on my shoulder, like this little parrot talking to me and just trying to figure it out. And I keep telling people, like, it wasn't until like my husband came in one day and he was like, I think you should do this. And he's not a risk taker. So I was like, okay, wait a minute, if he wants to do it. But when you talked about the whole repotting thing, I felt like it had more purpose to it. It was like there was something that I was finding my pot and my soil, and I was cultivating myself. Whereas up to that point, I had just been part of somebody else's cultivation of me and helping me grow into the person that I am. And Amber Hurdle, she's one of our dear friends, and her and I were talking about this just a couple of weeks ago. When we first met, Alex and I had just kind of, the podcast was just, we hadn't even done it yet. And we met Amber in person, and we were talking about things and dreams and what we wanted to do. And I just told her, I was like, I just have no idea what I want to be when I grow up. And she's like, well, then you might never figure that out. It's okay. But I just felt like I hadn't defined anything for myself. So I just felt like I was just sort of, just out there in the wind, just blowing around and not knowing what direction I needed to go. And this all of a sudden just felt so right. Like it was my kind of like, this was your purpose. Like this just felt, I'm in the right place at the right time. And all the things that have happened to me or I've done or I've experienced were culminating to this moment and helping me be a leader and be this strong person that I can be. And so I loved the repotting metaphor it just really resonated with me. So to Alex's point, the way you tell your story, everybody may have not have taken the same thing that I took from it, but it was exactly the right thing to hear at that time for me. So my repotting is going well. So thank you for asking.
Well, and I know Angie, you probably have a ton to say back to that too. So I just wanted to say though, like, I think what I've learned, and now especially, I went out on my own 2 years ago, and now Annie's out on her own. And it's like, since we've started this podcast 4 years ago, both of us taken major leaps at least once a year, both of us, and like without fail. And like, it's crazy. And like, I was at the dentist the other day. My dentist follows me on Facebook, and she's like, you're like the queen of reinvention. Like you just keep doing something different. And I'm like, I don't know if that's good or bad, but like, the hard part is, you want the situations where you're choosing to move away from something versus it being imploded on you and you have no choice, have no control. And like, I'm extremely blessed to this point. I mean, like hurricane wise or anything like that, I haven't had to deal with that from physical circumstances. Things with family, yes, for sure. But like, when things happen like they did to you, Angie, it's also really easy to lose faith, which was one of your 5 F's of like, I can't swear in the show because it's not rated for it, but what the F? that's the sixth F. Like, why the F is this happening?
Yeah.
I've got the 5. Why is this one
The
in
sixth
here?
one is just sitting out there
No.
waiting to happen.
Oh my gosh, totally. My girlfriend, one of the dreamers that was in Nashville, she is very creative, and her way of processing, I'm writing, she's building a quilt, and she's making all the quilt out of all these words, and some are the destructive words like loss and grief and destruction, and then faith and resilience are the positive words, and it's beautiful. It's this beautiful work, and one of her words is WTF, because it's like, seriously, that is a question you ask yourself when you're screaming, pounding on the steering wheel, picking your kids up from school. Like, that is the reality of what happens, and so we all have those moments, and then you have your people, and you have your faith, and you have your routines, and you keep going. And I love hearing, you guys are so inspiring because you are dreamers. You're following your dreams, and they don't always stay the same. I think that's one thing that we sat around in Nashville, and we all had to give our 5-minute dreamer story from the year. And then each of us took turns speaking words over like what we saw in each friend and giving them words of encouragement. But I'm hearing you guys say that you're following your dreams, and those change, and that you aren't afraid to pivot and to say, okay, that was my dream, but now I'm going in this direction and taking this faith. So that's so awesome. And it sounds like you guys are your own dreamers cohort. You are encouraging each other.
Well, we said this right before we started, and if anybody's not watching on YouTube, Andy and I showed up for an interview earlier today with Tim Rizzoli from Verbo, and we both, when I turned on the camera, I'm like, oh my God, we're wearing the same outfit. We're both wearing our vest and a white shirt. Did not coordinate it, and like that I haven't seen you in that vest since we've been at a trade show, so it was just funny. But like, I mean, I think there's 100% like timing of whatever you believe in, God, the universe, whatever it is, that higher power. Things come into your life, things leave your life, situations happen in reasons that you can't understand in the moment, but like it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And like, I think in my personal experience of like just learning to grow up and be more mature, a lot of what I listen to, whether it's audiobooks or podcasts, like that speak to that mentality, like that keeps me grounded of like, when things don't go right, like, yeah, I get upset, but it's like, this isn't the end of the world, like it's going to be okay, and I think just really being able to harness that is important because I hope nobody goes through what you went through, but like there will be similar things on different levels that everybody does. So,
yeah, I think when listening to you talk about your boys, I know you never want your children, you never want your children to have to experience any sort of trauma. And as a parent, that's what you try to do, is help them avoid that. But on the flip side of it is like, what a blessing to know that you were there with them as they went through this, so that, regardless of what happens in life, they've got the skills and the coping mechanisms to get through these things. And they're stronger than most other kids they're ever going to, run to. So they're going to be there for other people. And so it's just made them so much more, they're stronger for it. And as awful as it is, they're just better. They're better for it, better equipped to handle, because let's face it, the world is a crazy mess someday. So
yeah, 100%. And I think Mike and I were not really equipped to know what to say or do when some of these emotions came up in our boys. And we kind of explained it like Sally, my therapist. I'm like, she is like a coach. You have coaches for sports to teach you how to play volleyball and basketball. Like when something like this happens, we don't know how to do that. So we're going to go to our coach to help us navigate these very deep kind of traumatic feelings that we are all experiencing. And she helped me understand that everything that we're going through on a traumatic level is normal, and everything they're going through is normal, these feelings and ups and downs and dark days and stuff. And she helped me like recognize the patterns to notice when one of them might be going into like a sad cycle. And those are really helpful things as a parent to know that I wouldn't have known, and then how to help them get out of it. And she said, this is going to pass, like time is going to go on and the fire is going to be in your rearview mirror. But moving forward, your boys will always have these skills to navigate whatever else comes their way.
Yeah.
So,
and like, what a blessing in disguise that like, you don't even truly know the end result of that, but for them to have been through this at that age, and like, just to see you and your husband being so strong and like what you were going through, like the impact of that, they're different people. All of you are. I mean, like, and Annie, you also, like, I mean, when you've been through something like that, that was the then, and this is the now. And like, how do we move forward with the now without, like you said, Angie, of like just looking to the past so much? Like, it just, you have to just, it's a clean break and you have to roll with it, I think. But it's not easy, right?
What is it that's saying that the reason the rearview mirror is smaller than the windshield is because, you know, your view of the future is bright and wide, and the view in your past needs to be kept small in your past or side. It's a little more precise than that.
There's a song lyric, right? It's but it's like a semisonic sign of like you're in the rearview mirror.
Yeah. Anyway, we all get the point. Yeah, but there's a reason for that. So anyway,
for sure, yeah, for sure. And they talk about there's those studies on post-traumatic stress versus post-traumatic growth, and there's been research studies on kids that have experienced PTSD or traumatic events in their childhood, and some of them end up going this way, like to prison, in ending up and some, but others end up being beyond their peers, and they've studied what the difference is, and having a community and people that support them can actually have post-traumatic growth. So for any of your listeners that have kids going through difficult things, you just being steady and being there and available and listening, like it can end up being to their benefit.
Well, so in this time I've done my research and I still don't know the song lyrics, but I've just got completely stuck on what this means. And I have to share it because this is like, something I would copy and paste and keep in my journal. And the question I asked is like, what's the quote about rearview mirror? And Google AI came back and said, move on and don't look back. Focus on your future and you'll get to where you want to be. If you navigate the future by looking in the rearview mirror, you're bound to crash. Look ahead to shape the future you desire. That's one really good one. And then the other one is quotes about the rearview mirror often use the analogy of driving to emphasize that the future is what is more important than the past. I mean, there's a lot there, right? And like that's the theme. I mean, like that is it. When something's in the past, you let it be in the past. And like, it's hard to not always think that the past was better than what it was, and that the future is harder than what it will be. And right now that you're more miserable than you actually are. And I think it all comes down to perspective on how you handle those emotions.
Would Sally be proud of us? We made some breakthroughs here.
Sally and actually, I was on a podcast a few weeks ago and I didn't know it was live. And I was in Nashville meeting a friend for tea, and she texted me, and her husband's in the vacation rental industry. Like, we know it's a very small island. And so we served on the same board. And she was like, oh my gosh, like she was like, good job, Angie, because she was such a part of our whole community, like moving forward. So she was part of my board of directors and part of my girlfriends as well. So Sally, you're such an angel. She does it.
Oh.
Yeah, she'll listen.
Well, Angie, thank you so much for coming on and sharing more about your story. And I wish that everybody had the opportunity to see it live in person, but that's why it was super important for us to be able to take this message to our audience. And I know a lot of people will get a lot from this. And I know I have personally, just in these 45 minutes. So we appreciate you so much. If anybody wants to get in touch with you and maybe they have questions about anything that you talked about, which I'm probably going to stir some questions people would like to know, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, Instagram at Miss Angie Leone or angieleone.com. I have a website if anyone wants I'm doing speaking, or Coconut Condos website is still up and has our properties listed on it. So
you might need to come to Barcelona for the women's conference in Europe.
Oh, you definitely do. Oh my God.
I want to be on the next Italy trip, you guys.
Yeah, well, they're moving it to Barcelona next year, but maybe they'll go back to Italy. But you would be great for that group.
Great. And I will say, well, hopefully we have people that are listening still at this point. The difference, they're both women's conferences, types of conferences I've been to have been amazing. But I feel like the European one that we did by Christiana was actually nothing about the industry. It was 1000% even more above and beyond of like personal resilience, things that you've come over, challenges that you've had. And literally, I mean, the things that I heard people share on stage, I'm like, this is mic drop moments of like crazy, like at the end of the day, nobody knows what anybody is dealing with. Like, I mean, like we all have crazy things going on. Sometimes it's more publicly if there's a storm, like what happened to Angie, but like, you don't know until you know. And to hear these women open up and be that vulnerable around people that they didn't even know, I'm like, oh my God, it's just, it's mind blowing. But I think your story, Angie, for sure would so resonate with that crowd.
Okay, well, let's do it.
Let's do it.
We're dreaming. I like Spain. I was an au pair in Spain.
Oh, there you go. So, perfect.
I can be the translator.
Exactly. Well, now they've got the AirPods, so I don't have them yet. Like you can hear people say, but
thanks again, Angie.
Thank you, Angie. If anybody wants to get in touch with Annie and I, you can go to alexandanniepodcast.com. And until next time, thanks for tuning in, everybody.